Today I have a special guest with me. Her name is Ugochi.
Hi.
Ugochi and I went to high school together, and if you watch my video with Ngozi, yeah, we all went to high school together. We're actually in the same class all through for 6 years, and I haven't seen Ugochi since we graduated high school, and that was 2007. So it's been what am I looking at her like I can't do the math. So it's 13.
Yeah,
it's 13 years. So like we just reconnected this year, and Ugochi's here. She actually flew down to come see me and just hang out, and I was like, oh, okay, how about we do a video, because Ugochi is a
psychiatrist.
Yeah, Ugochi is a psychiatrist, which is really, really cool. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm Ugochi. I am a psychiatrist in training at Stanford Hospital in California. I've lived in the US now for 13 years. I'm originally from Nigeria. Most of my family is back in Nigeria. And I have a pretty strong interest in advancing mental health care and mental health services for people of the African American community, and as well as immigrant populations from Africa.
Cool. Okay, girl. All fancy. I'm really, really proud of Ugochi. Even back in high school, she was super smart. Oh my gosh. Like, we would be playing, and Ugochi's like studying her book, and I'm like, girl. All my Louisville family, I know that you're pretty surprised to see Ugochi on camera, but yes, this is Ugochi live and direct, and we are very happy to have her here. So, yay! So today, again, Ugochi said she's very interested in mental health, especially in the Black population. So she's gonna give us some nuggets, and so please pay attention because she has the deets. I mean, it's her field.
So I mean, I think there's a lot that can be covered in mental health, but when it's specific to the Black community, I think the Black experience forces Black people to acknowledge or face the fact that they have a very disparate life experience because of their Blackness. And I think Black people are particularly susceptible to some of these mental health issues because of chronic stress.
Yeah.
So compared to other populations in the US, there's no other population that has to deal with systematic racism, police brutality, which is on all the news headlines right now. And even with the COVID pandemic, it's pretty clear that once it became apparent that the Black community was being disproportionately affected by this pandemic, people were not allocating resources well enough to help Black people.
Oh, wow.
And I think that is also a symptom of the kind of systematic racism that persists in this country.
Absolutely.
So I think Black people, the reason why it's important to me is because I see it time and time again that Black people are not given what they're owed, they're not given their due, and oftentimes, they fall through the cracks. So I wanted to talk today about the psychological and mental health implications of social distancing and police brutality in the context of the chronic oppression that Black people have to deal with. There are a few things that are likely outcomes for people who are experiencing mental health issues but not having it addressed. For example, things like depression, anxiety, PTSD, and even suicide are on the rise nationwide, but I also suspect are on the rise in the Black community. And depression and anxiety can look very different from person to person. Some people think that there's just a specific way that depression looks, but there are people who can be mostly irritable when they're depressed. There are people who can be mostly isolated when they're depressed. There are people who are functional depressive people. And by functional, I mean they have all the symptoms, but they're still able to get to work and meet their obligations. And because of that, people don't pick up on the fact that they are struggling. And then there's also PTSD, which usually stems from traumatic experiences, whether it's physical trauma or emotional trauma. And just given the fact that as Black people, we are more likely to be stopped and frisked by the police
Yes.
for undue cause, to be assaulted and not have the police follow up on those complaints.
Yeah.
So PTSD can often present itself as nightmares, sleeplessness, hypervigilance.
Okay.
Sometimes people have this heightened sense of arousal, which means even the slightest stimulus can provoke a very exaggerated response.
Oh, okay.
For example, maybe hearing something drop in the kitchen makes them feel like they have to be on edge.
Oh, okay.
To protect themselves.
Wow.
Meanwhile, in someone who hasn't had that kind of trauma, you don't see them eliciting that kind of response.
Okay.
So I think these are important things to highlight so that people know how to recognize it when they see it.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate that in light of all the things going on, Black people also have limited access to general medical care.
Yeah.
And especially mental health care. So that's why I think the most effective way to get people to the right kind of providers is to encourage self-advocacy.
Okay.
So teaching people how to recognize when something is wrong and giving them the resources for where to go once they've been able to highlight that something is off.
I actually like that you said, people might react a different way, or so that whenever you think someone is overreacting, what that sparked for me is not to be too judgmental of people and just like take it easy and think, what if they're actually experiencing something that I don't understand, right? So again, before you tell someone to stop overreacting, just extend a bit of grace and be kind. You never know what they're actually going through. Yeah, that's cool.
I would agree. The other thing that I think is a really big problem in getting people the care that they need is not just with Black people, but in general, I think there's this overlying stigma attached to mental illnesses.
Okay.
And mental illness there's a pretty broad spectrum. There's your mild functional depression all the way to pretty severe psychosis and schizophrenia. Okay. So those things are very, very different. Okay. And I think, when people think about mental illness, they think about the typical schizophrenic who are psychotic and out of touch with reality, people who are delusional or who hear voices or see things.
And that's true. And I coming from Nigeria too, I know that's what when we see someone who's actually mad on the street, we say, that's the mental health that we know about. Yeah. Not necessarily that someone is feeling depressed. Depression is something we pray away culturally, but it's actually a health condition. So
in a sense, there is pathology there because depression is something that we treat.
Yeah.
But I want to explain depression as more of a deviation from the status quo. So depression is not something that's unique to any particular population or gender. Yeah. Depression will happen to most people in your lifetime. Absolutely. Because that is what life does. Sometimes you have great experiences that are positive, and sometimes life deals you a difficult hand. And part of coping with that is sometimes depression shows up. But the salient point is not the fact that you do have depression. It's figuring out what to do to fix that. Yeah. To get you back doing the things that bring you joy and bring you happiness. So some people develop good coping mechanisms to deal with depression. Some people develop less than stellar coping mechanisms to deal with depression. Yeah. On the negative side, I'll say, sometimes when people feel like there is a stigma and they can't talk about what they're going through, or they don't have an outlet or a support system, sometimes people end up turning to drugs or other kinds of substances to help medicate. That's kind of a slippery slope because a lot of these substances like alcohol, medications, prescription meds like benzodiazepines or opioids can actually have cumulative effect and be even more of a neurodepressant, meaning that you're having depression, but these drugs actually have a physiological effect on your nerves and the neurotransmitters in your body that could actually make you feel even more depressed. So in the short term, it seems like a good idea, but in the long term, it's never a good idea. So we would rather people not venture down that aisle, which is why we want to advocate for good coping mechanisms. And I think in the current climate that we're living in, where people are having to social distance and isolate more than they would typically do, whether it's because of the pandemic or for safety reasons because of the riots right now. I think it's become so important to have a good social support system. And it's challenging doing that because you have to be separate from people. But I think this is the time where we need to be creative, trying to keep those connections alive, whether it's virtually or
Zoom calls and WhatsApp and FaceTime. Sojo.
All the social media stuff.
Exactly.
This is where it comes in.
Keeping
romantic relationships alive, keeping family connections alive, talking with children, with friends. I think those things are really, really important because sometimes it's difficult for us to see the light at the end of the tunnel or see another option for ourselves when we're just sitting with it by ourselves. And oftentimes it takes another person to change the lens and show you something you couldn't see. For example, just today, I was talking with Uju and she helped me reframe my perception about different things, about how I go about my career and like some of the projects that I'm hoping to work on. And it's interesting, on some level I knew these things, but having somebody else give me an objective kind of appraisal definitely changed my outlook. So I think social connections are very, very important. I think other positive coping skills are things like exercising and meditation.
Good.
I didn't think meditation was a thing until I moved to California, and that's what they do out there.
Oh my gosh, yes. And I think I even have to learn how to meditate. It's always difficult for me because the only kind of meditation I know, and I learned this at work, is to actively think positive thoughts. But I'm like, I can't connect to any positive thought right now, so what do I do? And then they said, just listen to yourself breathe. It kind of clears your head. So
people think meditation is just a simple thing, but it's actually very difficult to meditate. And you're right. And you're right. It actually, clearing your head is one of the most difficult things to do, especially when you're stressed out. Because all you can do is think about the things that's stressing you out.
True.
So that's why there's actually this app called Headspace. Many of you may already know it. But I really like the app because it kind of starts you out slowly doing guided meditations. So guided meditations are when there's pretty much somebody on the app narrating to you what to do, whether they want you to take deep breaths or shallow breaths, they want you to focus on different parts of your body, and they just guide you through the meditation. With time, the more advanced you get, you can actually just meditate on your own. But that takes a while.
Like when you say while, like a month, a year.
It depends on how religiously you do it. I do have a colleague persistent. I do have a colleague who he's been meditating for 5 years religiously, and he goes on these silent meditation retreats for 3 months at a time, and now he can meditate at the drop of the hat, and he's the most peaceful person I've ever met.
People who actually meditate are so like the lady that was giving us the training. I was like, why are you like? The world is in turmoil. And you're like, she's just like, during meetings, I just tell people, it's okay. I'm like, no, it's not okay. So I agree. Like, they're really, really peaceful people. I want to be a peaceful person. I want to be embodiment.
We can all get there.
There you go.
Sometimes, it's hard for me too. But I've learned to be compassionate to myself. That's also something I want to encourage people to do. Because we're all going through a lot right now. We all have a lot on our plate, and it's very easy to be critical of yourself. Someone once told me this: if I heard someone else talking to a friend of mine saying the things I say to myself, I would not accept that on behalf of my friend.
Exactly.
Why is it so easy for us to accept that kind of talk when it comes from ourselves to ourselves?
Yes, absolutely. Extending that grace, the same grace you extend to people, extend to yourself.
So I think definitely social connections, exercising and meditation, and self-compassion are very important.
Just 3, very easy to remember.
Those things are super important to kind of keep you above water.
Yes.
And then you can add on to that.
Oh my gosh, that is so profound. Ugochi, so much wisdom.
We try. I guess for one last thing that I didn't want to leave without bringing this up. I just want people to be aware that as a mental health provider, it's our job to keep abreast of what's going on. And there has been an uptick in gun sales and even people reporting suicidal thoughts.
Here in the US, right? Okay.
In the spirit of advocating for the Black community, I really want people to please be vigilant, not just for yourselves, but for the people around you. Be vigilant and like check in on people.
Yeah.
If it's just a text or a call, check in to see if people are doing okay, if they're isolating too much, perhaps they're depressed.
Yeah.
The scary part of depression is sometimes people can feel like they're in such a really, really dark place that they feel they have no other option but to take their life. And that's one of the scariest things for us as mental health providers, is dealing with suicidality in that population.
Yeah.
So I do want to say that we'll provide you with the National Suicide Lifeline number. If you feel like there's somebody who may be considering suicide, please call that number so that they can get the help that they need. And we'll also put a link for the Headspace app so that people can utilize that when they're having acute bouts of stress.
Yes.
I have found it really helpful. I know a lot of patients who found it really helpful, and a lot of colleagues, both psychiatrists and doctors in different medical specialties, who find that very helpful.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, yes, definitely. And at the making of this video, hey, I'll be honest with you, English, hey. At the making of this video, as of today, I don't have any information on the helpline for people in Nigeria. I'm Nigerian, so I'll always advocate for people in Nigeria. But if you know anyone, or if you have the number for any of those societies or organizations that help with suicide, share it with me via maybe DM, or I'll start to share like my email, tweet it at me, put it in the comments, wherever, and we'll have that link to the description as well, so that that information gets out. I think Headspace should be on Android and Apple. Exactly. So let us know if you're using it as well. Like if you download it and you're willing to try it, please let us know as well. And it would be nice to share. I'm gonna download it for sure. I didn't even know about it. Oh, thank you so much, Ugochi. I really appreciate it. Yeah, and thank you so much for watching this video. If you do like my channel as a whole, please feel free to subscribe, and I hope that you found value in this video, and we will see you next. Wait, first of all, you have to hit this. There's this thing called notification button somewhere at the bottom. Find it and click it
so that you get all the right content.
Click it before I will come find you. Am I smiling? Am I playing? No? Yes? Okay, we're fine. Well, thank you so much, and I will see you in my next video. Bye. Yeah!